Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about changes to naturalization and what to expect on an interview. My name is Ruby Powers. I'm board certified immigration attorney with Powers Law Group, a full service immigration law practice based out of Houston, but we have clients all over the US and world on US immigration matters. Let's go ahead and get started. Why does this matter? Well, it's important to become a citizen if you choose to in the United States, and we're talking specifically about naturalization. There have been some recent changes at the time. We are currently in mid to late September 2025, and there's some proposed changes as well. And we sort of been seeing a shift. And during the Biden administration, there was a lot of people applying, and we were seeing applications getting approved in about under 6 months. We've still seen some fast adjudications, but we're not sure if it's going to remain that way going forward or if it gets a little bit more stringent, especially with some of the changes we're about to explain. So there's a little bit more in interview scrutiny, added layers of requirements, and a potential change with the exam as well. So for the most part, there's been updates to the N400. Sometimes the e-filing application is different than the N400, the paper version. So you need to always make sure you're working on the most recent version that's due at the time of submission when you do submit it. Okay. And it's also important to note that you apply at the time of the filing and the time of the interview as well. So one of the most recent changes was the good moral character, where USCIS issued a policy guidance expanding how officers can evaluate good moral character and reviewing it more holistic in the totality of circumstances. They can weigh adverse conduct against positive community ties and increase discretion, and it requires applicants to proactively document community service, stable employment awards. I used to say you didn't have to have a job to apply for naturalization, but it seems like that might be considered a good moral character aspect, but other things you do in the community and you do with your time and your contributions to society, I think are going to be considered, but we're still yet to see exactly how it's going to be interpreted and adjudicated. So applicants with prior arrest, DUIs, things should get legal counsel, like we always say, to evaluate before you apply. They're also just recently are planning to make the naturalization test even more rigorous. We saw this under Trump 1.0, and then the test reverted back under Biden to the less stringent version. And now there is a proposal to restore back to the 2020 format that expands to 128 questions instead of 100, and the applicants have to answer 20 and pass 12 as opposed to having to pass 6 out of 10. So there's also talk about a possible essay component, which will definitely make it more difficult for English as a second language speakers and writers, as well as probably take longer to adjudicate because or to make decisions if there is an essay component. So definitely pay attention to which version is going to be used at the time that you have an interview, and know that this is just probably going to get more stringent, more difficult, more scrutiny, vetting going forward, especially under this administration. So they're double checking a lot of different background checks and biometrics, FBI, other checks. We already knew that you make sure you maintained your taxes, don't owe anything. If you do, you have a payment plan. So it's important to be aware that this is all being considered. So normally in an interview, you're applied for the N400, you may or may not have done your biometrics, and then you're called in for an interview. At that interview, you'll have gone through airport style security, you'll do your biometrics, and then you'll meet with the officer. They usually start with the exam and the English test initially to make sure that you can proceed with the rest of the interview. And then from there, if you do so, then it's really similar to just going through almost every single question on the application. Sometimes they'll skip over some things, but for the most part, they're verifying that everything you had said is true or still correct. And then after making any edits, they'll also ask you questions about like the oath of allegiance, and then have you sign what edits were made everything is true and correct, and then you will be given information about whether to expect to your oath ceremony, when, where, how, and what's the next step. So you always want to follow the instructions that they put on the interview notice as to what to bring to the interview, arrive early, be professional. So that's a fast summary, but that civics and English test, they're planning to make a change, so be aware of that. And there could also be more stricter scrutiny on disability exemptions and things like that. I think one of the bottom lines is you probably are going to need an immigration attorney to not only help prepare the application, to prep you and to attend the interview. Under the Biden administration, isn't really the situation that I felt like it was needed, but now I think we're going to need that more often. Now, officers, especially with all the more scrutiny that's happening, officers are looking for consistency and honesty. They're trying to compare notes between your prior filings when you got your green card, your legal permanent residency. So tell the truth, study your application, make sure you come prepared, and know why they're asking you those questions. If you have any criminal history, make sure that you have those records prepared. And if it's something that would prevent you from naturalizing, then probably don't apply for naturalization right now. But this is also important of having that initial consultation with an experienced immigration attorney. Check to see if anything would trigger you a permanent bar or affect your good moral character that might keep you from being eligible. But it is important to come prepared because it's your burden to have those documents and to be able to prove that you're eligible. Now, they still have the medical and disability accommodations, and from our experiences, the USCIS has been very considerate given the different disability exceptions that we've had clients encounter. Um, you can have the N648 completed by a medical professional that's experienced in the field in which you are demonstrating that disability and that accommodation need. Make sure that you know what's on the inside and what's been signed and agreed to inside that medical waiver accommodation, and know that the officer does not have to grant it. There could be more scrutiny, but be prepared for what may come if they do not. What to do, not do, or at or before the interview. Make sure that you, I mean, just be aware of what your online presence is stating. There's a lot more scrutiny on that. Make sure that you know when to go, where, when, how. You're going to need that USCIS interview notice to get into the office. So make sure you have a printout or can demonstrate that when the security asks you for it. Answer the questions that you're asked. You don't necessarily omit intentionally any information. Make sure you answer the questions that are being asked, but be prepared for that to know how best to answer those questions. And I would say come prepared with those originals and certified copies. And be careful what you say or you're we have a lot more scrutiny at this time. So the role of immigration attorney can help you verify that you're eligible for the application in the first place. And then they can help prepare the application so to the submission, and monitor in case there's any issues along the way. And then they can help you there and their team can, they and their team can help prepare you for the interview as well as go to the interview with you. And so they might not in the interview do a lot of talking, so it doesn't mean that they didn't do anything. They're observing, they're monitoring, they're going to interject when they feel they need to. They're taking notes. But it's also that peace of mind knowing that somebody who's familiar with your case is in the room, being an advocate for you. So normally I've found that a lot of people are going to nonprofits or trying to file on their own when they don't have any issues or they think they don't have any issues. I'd say at the very minimum, have a consultation to evaluate eligibility, and then depending on that, decide what you want to do. But I would probably, we're at a time where having someone attorney at your interview is more important than I'd say than ever before. Now, you might also get a request for evidence or a denial after the interview, and depending on what the reasons are, you would want to decide how to address that. For a request for evidence, if you don't respond, then likely your case will be denied. And it could be something like showing that you have your tax payment plan or more proof, whatever, the criminal record, whatever they're asking for. If the case is denied, you can file an N-336, but I would say definitely have an attorney review that denial to see, is that N-336 going to make a difference, or would it be better to either not apply for a little while and let it cool off and get some more time under your belt, whether for travel or good moral character or what have you, or remedying the situation that was an issue, or potentially file another N-400. Sort of depends on lots of different facts. Okay, so on the day of the interview, bring your originals and copies, bring your appointment notice, that photo ID, your green card. I would say bring all your passports as well because they want to verify your travels. And now we're considering other evidence about good moral character as well. Make sure that you reviewed your application, you feel calm, cool, collected, and you know where you're going so that you can get there on time. Now, usually in the interview, they're going to tell you what the next things are going to happen, like everything looks good or recommended approval, or you're going to get an oath ceremony soon. If they don't give you that answer, then I would say ask for some type of guidance before you leave the room. But for the most part, you should have a good feel if things went well or not so well. But you're all often when I leave the office, right when I'm getting in my car, I get an email that says that you've been recommended approval or an oath ceremony has been issued, or a request for evidence or something along those lines. So expect an oath ceremony if you are approved, and usually if you're denied, they won't tell you right away. They'll just need to put some evidence together to let you know. Make sure that you review the application, you're prepared for the civics test and the language, and know that there's going to be a background check on you. I would gather some positive character evidence. I would say I wouldn't just hire immigration counsel for complex cases. I'd say we need to start hiring for almost all cases at this point, just because of the more of the scrutiny that we're seeing, and be prepared to practice the civics in English, especially now that we're going to be soon see a more complicated version of the exam. So thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, please, you should follow our social media wherever we're seeing this from. Let other people know about it. We like to continue to provide resources for you. And again, my name is Ruby Powers. You can reach us at Powers Law Group at 713-589-2085. We also are on Facebook, X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and we have a newsletter in English and Spanish every other week. This is our changes to naturalization and what to expect in an interview edition. And next week we have stay ready and stay safe on how to prepare for ICE check-ins. But all of our content is on YouTube as well as other social media platforms. So you can continue to watch this and as well as on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.